Pope's Discourse on Murder from Juliette by the Marquis de Sade. Of all the extravagances into which man's pride was to lead him, the most absurd was the precious case he dared make of his person. Surrounded by creatures worth as much and more than he nonetheless considered himself at liberty to do away with those beings which he fancied subordinate to him, the while believing that no penance, no punishment, could wipe clear the crime consisting in an attempt upon his own life, to the initial folly stemming from pride, to that revolting stupidity of considering he was sprung from some divinity, of supposing himself in possession of an immortal soul, to this atrocious blindness, he was doubtless obliged to add the other of esteeming his mortal self beyond one's ability to imagine. Indeed, how could the beloved masterpiece of a bountiful divinity, how could heaven's favorite have come to any other conclusion? The severest penalties had then necessarily to be prescribed for whoever should wreck such a splendid machine. This machine was sacred, a soul, the brilliant image of a yet more brilliant divinity, animated this construction, whose destruction was deemed the most dreadful crime it would be possible to commit. And even as he reasoned thus, to appease his gluttony, he roasted the lamb entire on a spit. He carved into pieces and boiled in a pot this gentle and peaceable lamb, a creature shaped by the same hand that shaped him, his inferior simply because differently built. However, had he reflected a little, he would have thought a great deal less highly of himself. A rather more philosophical glance cast at the nature he misunderstood would have caused him to see that, a weak and ill-formed product of that blind mother's manufacture, he resembled all other creatures, that his condition was bound inextricably to the condition of all others, was necessitated like all the others, and hence was not one whit better than theirs. No earthly creature is expressly formed by nature, none deliberately made by her. All are the result of her laws and her workings, in such sort that, in a world constituted like ours, there had necessarily to be such creatures as we find here. Very different creatures probably inhabit other globes, the myriads of globes wherewith space is freighted. But these creatures are neither good nor beautiful, precious nor created. They are the froth. They are the result of nature's unthinking operations. They are like vapors which rise up from the liquid in a cauldron that is rarefied by heat, whose action drives the particles of air this liquid contains. This steam is not created, it is resultative. It derives its existence from a foreign element, and has in itself no intrinsic value. Its being or not has no adverse effect upon the element it emanates from. To this element it adds nothing, owes nothing. This element owes nothing to it. Let some other vibration different from heat modify this element. It will continue to exist in its new modification, and the vapor which resulted from it before will cease to result from it now. Let nature become subject to other laws. These creatures resulting from the present laws will exist no more under these different ones. But nature, will nonetheless still exist, although by different laws. Man thus has no relationship to nature, nor nature to man. Nature cannot bind man by any law. Man is in no way dependent upon nature. Neither is answerable to the other. They cannot either harm or help each other. One has produced involuntarily, hence has no real relationship to her product. The other is involuntarily produced, hence has no real relationship to his producer. Once cast, man has nothing further to do with nature. Once nature has cast him, her control over man ends. He is under the control of his own laws, laws that are inherent in him. With his casting, man receives a direct and specific system of laws by which he must abide, under which he must proceed ever after. These laws are those of his personal self-preservation, of his multiplication, laws which refer to him, which are of him, laws which are uniquely his own, vital to him, but in no way necessary to nature. For he is no longer of nature, no longer in her grip. He is separate from her. He is an entity entirely distinct from her. Of such little usefulness is he to her workings, of such little necessity to her combinations, that whether he were to quadruple his species or annihilate it totally, the universe would not be in the slightest the worse for it. If man destroys himself, he does wrong in his own eyes. But that is not the view nature takes of the thing. As she sees it, if he multiplies, he does wrong, for he usurps from nature the honor of a new phenomenon, creatures being the necessary result of her workings. If those creatures that are cast were not to propagate themselves, she would cast new entities and enjoy a faculty she has ceased to be able to exercise. Not that she is unable to recover the use of that faculty, if she wished to have it, but she never does anything needlessly. And so long as the first series of beings propagate themselves by faculties inherent in them, she suspends propagation. Our multiplication, only one of the laws inherent in us, is therefore decidedly detrimental to the phenomena of which nature is capable. Thus, those that we regard as virtues become crimes from her point of view, whereas, if creatures destroy one another, they do well as regards nature, for no obligation to reproduce has been imposed upon them. They have simply received the faculty to reproduce. Turning to destruction, they cease exercising it and give nature the opportunity to resume the propagation from which she refrained so long as it was needless. You may perhaps object that if this possibility of propagation she has left her creatures were detrimental to her, she would not have bestowed it in the first place. But observe that she has no choice in these matters, that she is bound by her laws, that she cannot alter them, that one of her laws is the casting of creatures which are cast at a single stroke, and that another of her laws is that her creatures be invested with the possibility to propagate themselves. Observe as well that were these creatures to cease propagating or to destroy themselves, nature's original rights, contested hitherto, would be restored to her. Whereas in propagating or in not destroying, we confine her to her secondary functions and deprive her of her primary powers. Thus, all the laws we humans have made, whether to encourage population or to prevent its destruction, necessarily conflict with all of hers. And every time we act in accordance with our laws, we directly thwart her desires. And that every time we either stubbornly refuse to undertake the propagation she abhors, or cooperate in the murders which delight her and which serve her, we are sure to please her, certain of acting in harmony with her wishes. Does she leave us in any doubt of the point to which our increase inconveniences her? Can we not tell how eager she would be to halt our multiplication and be delivered of its ill effects? Is all this not proven by the disasters she sends to harry us, by the divisions and discords she sows in our midst, by the thirst for murder she constantly inspires in us? These wars, these famines she hurls at us, these pestilences she now and again looses with the aim of wiping us off the face of the earth, these great villains she fabricates in profusion, these Alexanders, these Tamerlanes, these Genghis Khans, all these heroes who lay the world waste, by these tokens, I say, does she not plainly demonstrate that all our laws are contrary to hers, and that her purpose is to destroy them? Thus it is that these murders our laws punish so sternly. These murders we suppose the greatest outrage that can be inflicted upon nature, not only, as you very well see, do her no harm and can do her none, but are instrumental to her, since she is a great murderess herself, and since her single reason for murdering is to obtain, from the wholesale annihilation of caste creatures, the chance to recast them anew. The most wicked individual on earth, the most abominable, the most ferocious, the most barbarous, and the most indefatigable murderer is therefore but the spokesman of her desires, the vehicle of her will, and the surest agent of her caprices. Let us go further. This murderer thinks he destroys, he thinks he consumes, and these beliefs sometimes engender remorse in his heart. Let us put him confidently at ease, and if the system I have just developed is a little beyond his reach, let us prove to him from what happens before his very eyes that he has not even the honor of destroying, that the annihilation upon which he flatters himself when in sound health, or at which he shudders when he is sick, is no annihilation at all, and that annihilation is unfortunately something he cannot possibly achieve. In all living beings, the principle of life is no other than that of death. At the same time we receive the one, we receive the other. We nourish both within us, side by side. At the instant we call death, everything seems to dissolve. We are led to think so by the excessive change that appears to have been brought about in this portion of matter, which no longer seems animate. But this death is only imaginary. It exists figuratively, but in no other way. Matter deprived of the other portion of matter which communicated to it is not destroyed in the least. It merely abandons its form, it decays, and in decaying proves that it is not inert. It enriches the soil, fertilizes it, and serves in the regeneration of the other kingdoms as well as of its own. There is, in the final analysis, no essential difference between this first life we receive and this second, which is the one we call death. For the first is caused by a forming of some of the matter, which renews and reorganizes itself within the entrails of Mother Earth. Thus does exhausted matter re-enter the regenerating womb, there to refertilize particles of ethereal matter, which, but for it, would remain in their apparent inertia. Only from exhaustion do nature's laws become operative. Only through destruction are these laws transmitted. Death is as necessary as life, and there is, indeed, no real death. Were there a criminal who could smite down every last creature all at once, annihilating both them, and, as a result, their capacity to reproduce, he it would be who serves nature best. Now look again at your legislations in the light of this startling truth, and see how just they be. No destruction, no fodder for the earth, and consequently, man deprived of the possibility to reproduce man. Fatal truth this, since it contains inescapable proof that the virtues and vices of our social system are not, and that what we characterize as vices are more beneficial, more necessary than our virtues, since these vices are creative and these virtues merely created. Or, if you prefer, these vices are causes, these virtues only effects. Proof that a too perfect harmony would have more disadvantages than has disorder, and proof that if war, discord, and crime were suddenly to be banished from the world, the three kingdoms, all checks upon them removed, would so flourish as to unsettle and soon destroy all the other laws of nature. It is the crimes of man which, stemming the rise of the three kingdoms, counteracting their tendency to overabundance, prevent their importance from becoming such as must disrupt all else, and maintains in universal affairs a most perfect equilibrium. Therefore is crime necessary in the world, but the most useful crimes are, without doubt, those which most disrupt, such as refusal to propagate, as well as destruction. All the others are petty mischief. They are less even than that, or rather only those two merit the name of crime. Thus, you see, these crimes are essential to the laws of the kingdoms, and essential to the laws of nature. An ancient philosopher called war the mother of all things. The existence of murderers is just as necessary. Without them, the order of things would be hopelessly disturbed. It is therefore absurd to blame or punish them. More ridiculous still to fret over the very natural inclinations which lead us to commit this act in spite of ourselves. For never will too many or enough murders be committed on earth, considering the burning thirst nature has for them. Oh, unhappy mortal, boast not that you are able to destroy. It is something far beyond your forces. You can alter forms, but you are helpless to annihilate them. Of the substance of nature, not by one grain can you lessen its mass. How would you thus destroy, since all that is eternal? You may change the forms of things, vary those forms, but this dissolution benefits nature, since it is these disassembled parts she recomposes. Thus does all change effected by man upon organized matter far more serve nature than it displeases her. What is this, I say? Alas, to render her true service would require destructions more thorough, vaster than any it is in our power to operate. It is atrocity, It is scope she wants in crimes. The more our destroying is of a broad and atrocious kind, the more agreeable it is to her. To serve her better yet, one would have to be able to prevent the regeneration resulting from the corpses we bury. Only of his first life does murder deprive the individual we smite. One would have to be able to also smite his second, if one were to be more useful to nature. For it is annihilation she seeks. By less, she is not fully satisfied. It is not within our power to extend our murders to the point she desires. Oh, Juliette, bear it ever in mind that there is no real destruction, that death is itself nothing of the sort. A man's birth is no more the commencement of his existence than his death is its cessation. And the mother who bears him no more gives him life than the murderer who kills him gives him death. The former produces some matter organized in a certain way. The latter provides the occasion for the coming together of some different matter. Both create. Nothing is essentially born. Nothing essentially perishes. All is but the action and reaction of matter. All is like the ocean billows which ever rise and fall, like the tides of the sea, ebbing and flowing endlessly, without there being either the loss or the gain of a drop in the volume of the waters. All this is a perpetual flux, which ever was, and shall always be, and whereof we become, though we know it not, the principal agents by reason of our vices and our virtues. All this is an infinite variation. 1,000 different portions of matter, which appear under every form, are shattered, are reconstituted to appear again under others, again to be undone and to re-rise. The principle of life is but the result of the four elements in combination. With death, the combination dissolves, each element returning entire into its own sphere, ready to enter new combinations when the laws of the kingdoms summon them forth. It is only the whole that changes form. The parts remain intact, and from these parts joined anew to the whole, new beings are forever being recomposed. But the principle of life, uniquely the fruit of the combining of elements, does not exist by itself. Only through this union does it exist, and it changes entirely when this union ceases, becomes more or less perfect depending upon the new work created out of the debris of the old. Now, as these beings are both completely indifferent one to the other, and completely indifferent to nature, the changes I make in the modifications of matter can be of no importance. Of what importance is it if I make a round lump of something into a square lump? What can it matter if of a man I make a cabbage, a lettuce, a butterfly, or a worm? In this I do nothing, but exercise the right I have been given to do it. And if I wish, if I can, I may thus trouble or destroy all beings without being able to say that I have acted contrary to the laws of nature. Far from it, I serve those laws one and all. I serve her in giving the earth the nutriment which facilitates her other productions, which is indispensable to them, and without which her productions would be at an end. I serve nature's laws in acting in consonance with the aims of perpetual destruction nature announces, and whose purpose is to enable her to develop new castings. The faculty wherefore is suspended in her owing to the continuing presence of what she has cast before. Are you able to believe that this blade of grass, this mite, this maggot, into which the body I slew has recently become, is of more or less outstanding importance to the laws of the three kingdoms, which, embracing them, all three, can have a predilection for none? Shall it be in the eyes of nature, who vomits forth her castings indiscriminately, that some one production or other of these castings shall attain to exceptional value? This would be tantamount to upholding that of the millions of leaves growing upon this aged oak tree. One of them is the darling of the trunk, because it is perhaps a little larger than its neighbors. One man the more in the world, or the less, or all mankind, or 100,000,000, including the infinite earths very much like ours, each full of men, all these are but subtle atoms, to nature of absolutely no account. So rend away, hack and hew, torment, break, wreck, massacre, burn, grind to dust, melt, in a word, reshape into however many forms all the productions of the three kingdoms, and you simply shall have done them so many services. You shall have done nothing but be useful to them. You shall have been the minion of their laws. You shall have executed those of nature, because we are creatures of too little strength and too narrow possibilities ever to cooperate in anything but the general order of things. And what you call disorder is nothing else than one of the laws of the order you comprehend not, and which you have erroneously named disorder because its effects, though good for nature, run counter to your present convenience, or jar with your opinions and values, which are merely the result of custom. Ah, if these crimes were not necessary to the general economy, would they be, as they are, inspired in us? Would we in the depths of our heart sense both the need to commit them and the charm of having committed them? How dare we think that nature could instill in us impulses which cross her wishes? Indeed, we may rather believe this, that she took all good care to place well outside our reach the power to do anything that might really discomfort or harm her. What she has put in our power to do, we have thereby her authorization to do it. All that is inside our grasp is ours to have. Let us tamper with it, destroy it, change it, without fear of harming her. Let us be rather persuaded that we are aiding her, and that the more we turn our hands to deeds of the sort we improperly term criminal, the better servants to her we are. But would there not be some substantial difference between one species of crime and another? And may there not be murders so base, so heinous as might be revolting to nature? What an idea! What stupidity to entertain it even for a moment. This person upon whom our human conventions shed an aura of sanctity, can he be of superior worth in nature's eyes? In what way can the body of your father, of your mother, of your sister be of more value, in nature's consideration, than that of a worm? Such distinctions cannot exist for her. She does not even perceive them. She cannot possibly perceive them. And this body, so precious according to your laws, will metamorphose itself just as surely as the body of that worm you so thoroughly despise. Arm yourself in the knowledge that the atrocity you dread pleases her. She would have you inject an ever greater dose of atrocity in those that you call your destructions. that you become an intransigent opponent of any reproduction is her wish, her greatest expectation of you. If the atrocity she desires of you cannot attain the farther target she sets you, turn it upon the nearer, and you shall have satisfied her to the best of your abilities. Unable to please her by the atrocity of a global destruction, at least provide her the pleasure of local atrocity, and into your murderings put every imaginable foulness and horror, thereby showing utmost docility in your compliance with the laws she imposes upon you. Your inability to do all she wants does not exempt you from doing all you can. From the foregoing, it would clearly appear that infanticide fits in closest with her designs, because it severs the chain of procreation. It consigns the greatest number of seeds to the tomb. In killing his father, the son breaks nothing. He removes the uppermost link of the chain. When the father kills his son, he prevents further links from ever being added thereto. The line is doomed. It is not doomed by the son's destroying the father, for the son remains, and in him lives the future of the line. Either children or young mothers, preferably when they are pregnant. These are the two murders which best answer the aim of nature. It is in that direction everybody should exert himself, if he wishes to please the harsh mother of humankind. Nearly all the world's peoples have enjoyed the right of life and death over their offspring. This right is perfectly natural, and of what may one better dispose than of what one has given? If there could be gradations of the alleged crime of murder, that is, if one could rank in their order of greater or lesser evil, things which contain none, infanticide would surely stand at the bottom of the scale. Our first instinctive urge is to destroy our issue, and destroyed it would infallibly be, if foolish and misguided pride did not often advise sparing it. Do we not see, do we not sense that atrocity in crime pleases nature? Since it is according to this factor alone, she regulates the amount of delight to provide us when we commit a crime. The more frightful it is, the more we enjoy it. The blacker, the fouler it is, the more we are thrilled by it. Thus it is that nature asks for, nay, demands viciousness, for vileness, for atrociousness in the deed she prompts us to. She wants us to adorn it with the same features she puts into the banes and plagues with which she besets us. So let us proceed fearlessly, imaginatively. Let us set all scruples and bars aside. Let us scorn humanity's vain laws, the idiotic institutions which imprison us. Let us heed none but nature's sacred voice, full certain that its instructions will always contradict the absurd principles of human morality and of infamous civilization. Do you then think civilization or morals have made men better? Imagine no such thing. Take care not to suppose it. The one and the other have served only to soften man, to obscure in him the laws of nature, who made him free and cruel. Alienated from her, the entire species sank straight into degradation. Its ferocity changed into cunning. And ever since then, the insidious evil man has only become more dangerous to his fellows. Let us not tire to repeat it. Murder is nothing more than a formal variation resulting in no loss. Regeneration, or better still, transformation, is the term we ought to use for this change we see take place in matter. It is neither depleted, nor wasted, nor spoiled, nor corrupted by the different forms it assumes. And one of the main causes of its durability and vigor may perhaps consist in the seeming destructions which make it ever more subtle and accord it greater freedom to form fresh miracles. There is nothing stranger in being born twice than once. Wherever you bend your glance in the world, you encounter resurrection. Caterpillars as butterflies, all the animals buried in the ground as grass, as potatoes, as worms, which then go on to nourish other animals whereof they begin again, and again, and again. Why punish a man for restoring a little ahead of time a portion of matter which is destined to the elements anyhow, and which, as soon as it returns to them, these same elements employ in new compositions? The sooner you kill that fly, the sooner we will have a king. Do you prefer to spare a cockroach and forgo an archbishop? There is then nothing wrong or bad in restoring to the elements the means to recompose 1,000 insects at the expense of a few ounces of blood, diverted out of its usual canals, in a somewhat larger species of animal conventionally known as man. Murderers, to be brief, are in nature as are war, famine, and plague. They are one of the means nature disposes of, like all the hostile forces she pits against us. Thus, when one ventures the statement that an assassin offends nature, the absurdity one utters is as great as though one were to declare that famine or war irritates nature or commits crimes. It is exactly the same thing. But we cannot flog or burn or brand or hang plague or famine, whereas we can do all of these to man. That is why he is wrong. You will almost always find wrongs measured not by the size of the offense, but by the vulnerability of the offender. And there is your explanation for why wealth and position are always right, and indigence is always at fault. As concerns the cruelty which leads to murder, we may confidently submit that it is one of man's most natural dispositions. It is one of the sweetest pensions, one of the keenest he has received from nature. Cruelty in man is simply an expression of his desire to exercise his strength. It pervades all his deeds, all his words, all his behavior. Education disguises it sometimes, but it is quick to reappear. It then manifests itself under all kinds of forms. The violent throbbings it causes us to feel, either at the idea or upon the execution of the crime cruelty suggests to us, are invincible proof that we are born to serve as blind instruments to nature's laws, and that once we lend ourselves to do her bidding, voluptuousness invades us through every pore. So reward him, this murderer, employ him instead of punishing him. Remember that there is no crime, of whatever slight importance in itself, that does not, however, demand as much strength and energy, as much courage and philosophy, as the grand crime of murder. He who knows how to stifle the cries of his conscience to the point of making a game of the lives of others, this man already has the stuff qualifying him for the very greatest undertakings. There are, heaven knows, how many people in the world who turn criminal on their own account simply because an undiscerning government ignores their worth and neglects to put them to work. The result is that the unlucky souls are broken on the wheel for plying the same trade in which they might otherwise have got themselves covered with renown and honor. Oh, height of fearful injustice! Wild animals may exist, such as the lion, the wolf, the tiger, who live from murdering alone. In so living, these animals disobey no laws, and there are other animals to be met with in the world who, to satisfy another passion than hunger, indulge in the same excesses. Are we to accuse these and other such animals of having committed crimes? We often complain of the existence of such and such a beast whose form or aspect is offensive to our eyes, or which causes us some nuisance or other, and we console ourselves by saying rightly and with common sense, "This is a dreadful-looking creature, a harmful one too, but it is useful. Nature has created nothing in vain. This animal probably breathes a certain air that would poison us, or else it eats insects of still greater danger to us. Let us be equally philosophical in every other regard, and in the murderer see naught but a hand guided by irresistible laws, a hand that ministers to nature, and which, through the crimes it accomplishes, of whatever sort you wish to suppose them, acts at the behest of certain intentions unknown to us, or prevents some accident, perhaps 1,000 times more to be deplored than the one it occasions. Sophistry, nothing but sophistry. Fools in tone at this point. It is true that murder offends nature, that he who has just committed it will shudder for the rest of his life at what he has done. Imbeciles. It is not because the deed is bad in itself that the murderer shudders, for be certain of it, in those countries where murder is recompensed, he shudders not. Does the warrior shudder over the enemy he has just felled? The sole cause of the uneasiness we feel after the deed lies in its prohibition. Every man has some time in his life, before a perfectly commonplace action, which circumstances happen to forbid, sensed all the terror he could possibly know from rendering himself guilty of that action. A sign is nailed over a door, saying it is forbidden to trespass here. No matter who he is who makes up his mind to go in, will do so with a kind of shudder. And yet this thing he does is not evil. It is thus from nothing but the prohibition that the terror is born, and not at all from the action itself, which, as we see, may inspire the same fear, though there be nothing criminal to it. This cowardice and remorse which accompanies the murder, this little moment of fright, derives infinitely more from prejudice than from the kind of deed at hand. However, let the wind blow in another direction for a month. Let the sword of justice smite what you call virtue for a while, and let the laws reward crime. You'll see the virtuous quaking and the wicked serene, as they both go about acquitting themselves of their favorite deeds. In these matters nature is silent. The voice that thunders inside us belongs to the prejudice, which with a little effort and determination we can quell forever. There is, however, a sacred organ whose intimate murmur used to resound in us before the voices of error or of education made themselves heard. But this other voice, which reminds us of our bondage to the elements, constrains us only to that which favors the harmonious accord of these elements, and their combinations modified after the forms which these same elements employ in composing us. However, this last named voice is not strident nor theatrical. It dins no knowledge of God into us, makes no mention of social duties, for these things are false, and it speaks the truth only. Neither does it tell us not to do unto others that which unto our own selves we would not that there be done. If we care to listen closely to it, 'tis quite the opposite message we will hear. Be ever mindful, nature says to us instead. Be ever mindful that all which you would not have done unto yourself, being the grave harm done a neighbor, whence there is much profit to be had, is precisely that which thou must do to be happy. For it is writ in my laws that ye all destroy yourselves mutually, and the true way to succeed therein is to harm thy neighbor without stint or cease. Whence it is that I have placed the sharpest bent for crime in you. Whence it is that my intention be that you render yourself happy at the expense of whosoever it be. Let your father, your mother, your son, your daughter, your niece, your wife, your sister, your friend be no dearer to you than the lowliest worm that crawls on the face of the earth. For bonds, duties, allegiances, affections, none of these has ever been had from me. They were wrought by your weakness only, by your education, and by your folly. They concern me not nor interest me at all. You may violate them, break them, loathe them, annul them. It is all one to me. I cast you into being as I cast the ox, the ass, the artichoke, the louse. To them all I gave faculties, some of greater, some of lesser proportions. Use what are yours. Once gone forth out of my bosom, you can touch me no more, whatever you do. If you keep yourself safe and increase, you do well as regards yourself. If you destroy yourself and others, nay, if you contrive, using such capacities as you have, to lay the three kingdoms waste, and to devastate them, so there shall be nothing left. It is a thing in which I shall be pleased beyond measure. For I in my turn shall use the fairest attribute of my power, that which is my ability to create, to make beings anew, which your accursed children hinder me from doing. Cease to engender, destroy absolutely all that exists. You will disturb not the slightest thing in my scheme or workings. But whether you destroy or create, the two be nearly the same in my eyes. Whichever way you would proceed, I benefit from your doings. Nothing is lost in my domain. The leaf that falls from the shrub is as useful to me as the cedars that forest Lebanon, and the rot-spawned worm is of no less nor more considerable value in my eyes than the mightiest king on earth. So form or destroy as you wish, and at your ease. Tomorrow's sun shall rise just the same. All the globes I hang and guide in space shall hold none the less firm in their orbits. And if you were to destroy all, know that what is annihilated by your wickedness is simply the necessary result of my combinations. And as I form nothing any more, because these kingdoms are created with the faculty of reproducing themselves mutually, smitten by your traitorous hand, they shall be reformed by me. I shall cast them again, and it shall be on earth as it was before. The vastest, the profoundest, the most atrocious of your crimes shall thus only have pleased me. Such are the laws of nature, Juliette. Such are the only laws she has ever dictated, the only ones which are precious to her, the only ones we should never transgress. If man makes other laws, we may deplore his stupidity, but we must never let it be binding upon us. We may fear becoming the victim of his absurd laws, but let us not violate them any the less. And free of all prejudices, directly we can do so with impunity, let us seize every opportunity to revenge ourselves for the odious constraint of his laws by perpetrating the most signal outrages. Regret nothing, but that we are unable to do enough. Lament nothing, but the weakness of the faculties we have received for our share, and whose ridiculous limitations so cramp our pensions. And far from thanking this illogical nature for the slender freedom she allows us for accomplishing the desires she inspires in us, let us curse her from the bottom of our heart for so restricting the career which fulfills her aims. Let us outrage her. Let us abominate her for having left us so few wicked things to do, and then giving us such violent urges to commit crimes without measure or pause. O you, so should we speak to her, you, unreasoning and reasonless force, of which I find myself the involuntary result. You who hurled me into this world with the desire that I offend you, and who has, however, denied me the means so to do. Inspire in my blazing soul some crimes which would serve you better than these poor melancholy things you have put inside my reach. I would obey your laws, since they require horrors of me, and for horrors I have a fiery thirst. But provide me better to do than your debility has given me so far. When I have exterminated all the creatures that cover the earth, still shall I be far from my mark, since I shall have merely served you, O unkind mother. For it is to vengeance I aspire. Vengeance for what, whether through stupidity or malice, you do to men, in never furnishing them the means to translate fairly into deeds the appalling desires you do ever rouse in them. In a word, murder is a passion, like gaming, wine, boys, and women. Never is it got rid of, once it is anchored in habit. No activity irritates as does this one. None prepares so much delight. It is impossible to weary of it. Obstacles sharpen its flavor, and the relish for it we have in our heart goes to the point of fanaticism. You, Juliette, have experienced how wonderfully it combines with debauches, and appreciated the tart flavor it gives them. It exerts a delicious influence at once upon the mind and the body. It inflames all the senses. It enchants. It dazzles. Its impact upon the nervous system, the commotion it produces there is greater by far than that of any other voluptuous agent. One is never fond of this one save inordinately. Furiously, one never indulges in it save ecstatically. The plotting of it titillates, the execution electrifies, the remembrance inspires. The temptation to repeat it is enormous. The desire to do this and nothing else constantly is overwhelming. The nearer a creature comes to us, the more it wakes our interest, the more directly it touches us, the more intimately, the more sacred its ties with us, the greater our joy in immolating the victim. Refinements enter into the thing. As happens with all pleasures from the moment, this personal stamp is added. All limits are abolished. Atrocity is wound to its topmost pitch, for the sentiment that produces it exhales it, in keeping with the increase or worsening of the torture. All one's achievements must necessarily lie short of one's intentions. However, the agonies leading to death must now be slow and abominable if they are to quicken the soul at all. And one wishes that the same life could revive 1,000 times over, in order to have the pleasure of murdering it that often, and that thoroughly. Each murder is a commentary and critique of the others. Each demands improvement. In the one that follows, it is shortly discovered that killing is not enough, that one must kill in ever more hideous style. And though one may be, at least at first, unaware of the fact, it is lewdness that always directs these matters. A divine and sacred lewdness with which you are very well acquainted, my dear.